Welcome to ShowProDX 2021, brought to you by MHI, the industry that makes supply chains work. ShowProDX is an unprecedented 11-session training over 3 weeks that will equip you to a powerful and, most importantly, profitable ProMat digital experience. I hope you've been enjoying this series. We've already covered things like building your sponsor showcase. We've talked about marketing and all that's available to you so that you can have a really powerful experience. We've brought in somebody to tell you how to tell a story. We've even talked about how to successfully market and sell in these trying times and to be safe doing it. We even have had people talk to us about how to bring more people to our showcase. I'm excited because in the future, we're even going to talk about creating videos so we can do product demonstrations. We're going to talk about doing sessions on video to teach and educate our audience. We're even going to teach you how to become a matchmaker. What I mean by that is we're going to teach you how to set up an application to best match the attendees with the products and services that you have to offer. You're not going to want to miss that. For all of that information and more, go to our website, promatshow.com/showpro. Again, that's promatshow.com/showpro. You'll find a lot of information there in addition to the recordings of the previous sessions that I mentioned in case you missed those or you'd like to watch those again. But today, we're very excited. Today is the hinge of the series. We've talked about the what and we've talked about the how. Today, we're going to talk about the why. How do we capture a non-captive audience? This world of doing a digital showcase is new to all of us. But today we're going to talk about how we can do a better job of capturing this audience. PromatDX is an amazing opportunity to engage with a wider audience in new ways that can drive exposure and generate really meaningful ROI for the sponsor and the marketer. But this new world brings a new set for rules on how to connect with your target audience and keep them engaged with your brand. Now, to welcome us to ShowPro, I would like to bring up our host for today and this series, the Director of Sales at MHI, Mr. Greg Baer.
Thank you, Ralph. I am so excited for today's webinars as we continue the discussion about building that ideal ProMat digital experience. PromatDX will be an amazing opportunity to engage with a wider audience in new ways that can drive exposure and generate meaningful ROI for our sponsors. But this new world brings a new set of rules. New rules on how to connect with your target audience and keep them engaged with your brand. Today, we'll explore some of those key questions we need to answer to help build the kinds of virtual experiences that truly move the needle with your audiences and help deliver against your business goals. Now, let's welcome back the show producer of ShowProDX and our Emcee, President of Omnichannel Productions, Ralph Henderson. I hope you enjoy today's session.
Thanks, Greg. I know you're going to enjoy this because I have had the pleasure of seeing the presentation and knowing what you're about to get and embark on. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Get rid of all the distractions. I mean this. Get rid of all the distractions and get ready because this is going to be valuable information for what we're getting ready to go into for PromatDX. but also it's going to be valuable information for what we're getting ready to go into as we roll out and create hybrid events. One of the things we've talked about is how in my 30 years of being in the material handling industry, I've attended, exhibited, developed business, and produced successful programs for clients all over the world at 15 ProMats. Now, the reason I've been able to do that is my why. What's your why? What is your company's why? Great news. Today, you're going to hear a presentation that's going to help you understand what your why is, and you're going to be able to have a powerful PromatDX. It will make your company successful, and it will make you successful. We will have a Q&A at the end of this presentation. I would encourage you to be thinking about the questions that you have for our presenter and putting those down into the Q&A area. Once again, we'll have Tessa Barrier from MHI helping us to manage that. So you're in good hands, and we'll be able to get all of your questions answered, but you have to give them to us in the Q&A. If we don't answer them live today, we will answer them and get back to you. In addition to that, if you have any questions on any of the sessions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the folks at MHI. Now, without further ado, I want to bring up our presenter, Mo Husseini. Now, Mo believes the clarity of purpose, a relentless sense of design minimalism, curiosity, optimism, and the power of human ingenuity and creativity can be harnessed to create amazing experiences. Well steeped in exhibition booth designs and film, Mo also has a deep background in brand strategy, messaging, narrative, creative ideation, and experiential marketing. He helps clients launch products, services, and brands into the world through live and digital experiences. He aims to understand the perspectives and the hopes of others. This motivation is what informs his quest to create meaningful and inspirational work. He tries always to work in a spirit of honest and open collaboration, but most of all, he believes that design thinking can change our industry and our world in profound ways. Please welcome Mo Husseini.
Wow. Thank you for that introduction, Ralph, and thank you all for attending. I will do my best not to disappoint, and I will do my best to try and live up to that introduction. It's always interesting to hear other people introduce you and feel, oh my God, who is that guy? I wanted to start off today with a couple of stills from a movie called Ready or Not, which at least for me captured the past year. If you haven't seen it, it's a film about a woman who marries into this very rich family that has some very unusual wedding party traditions. I will not spoil the movie for you if you haven't seen it, but I figured I'd start with a still from the beginning of the film where she's just gotten married, and it feels a lot like how 2020 felt for me. And then I figured I would go to the end still of the film, which is still a good visual for how 2020 felt for me. We all survived. But, you know, to put it mildly, it was a challenging year. And I'm sure that I speak for a lot of folks when I say that I'm glad it's over, and I am looking forward to a better year. I'm sure that this year will be amazing. I'm sure that everything this year is going to be perfect and go exactly as planned. Actually, I'm joking. It won't be. It won't be perfect, but it is going to be better. Because let's be honest, it's all relative. And if we compare ourselves to 2020, you know, relatively speaking, we're going to be fine. We've got vaccines, we've got a light at the end of the tunnel. And it seems like for the most part, we're doing we're doing and saying all the right things, and we're seeing all the right things that point to a recovery at some point this year. But as we head towards that recovery, we're despite the fact that we are headed in the right direction, there's a lot of people who are nervous. There's a lot of people who look at the industry and try to figure out exactly what's going to happen and how to deal with it and all this other stuff. And I've been doing a lot of speaking around that. And I think that the really important thing to remember from my perspective is that there's a lot more positive indicators right now than there are negative indicators. We are definitely in a weird place and everything is a little bit different and a little bit new, but I think that it's all going to be okay, because deep down the reality is that the things that people have cared about for a long time, well before our industry, the things that people have always cared about, all those things are still the same. The things that drive us, the things that motivate us, the things that inspire us to action, those things haven't changed. And if we as the creators of media, whether that media is live media or digital media or any other kind of media, frankly, if we stay focused on meeting those needs, as most of us frankly are, the realities of that work haven't really changed. And all that's really been adjusted is that we've got to think about the rules in a different way. Now, there's no two ways about it. COVID has been, an absolutely horrific experience for everybody, whether that's our nation, whether that's our economy, whether that's our fellow citizens, whether that's our family members. It's been a long, hard slog, but there is a way in which the pandemic has actually been fairly good, and I know that sounds a little odd given the context of what we've been living through, but I think that the experience has reminded all of us that there are things that matter to us, and those things that are truly important have helped us focus, whether that's businesses that have focused and really sharpened their message in the way they go to market, or human beings. I mean, I certainly can speak for myself and say that there are a lot of things about my life that I used to take for granted, like being able to, go to a cafe or go to a bar and just sit down and have a drink. All those things that I've taken for granted in the past, this has been an opportunity to re-examine those and really understand how much they matter to me and how much they matter to other people. And I think that that's true for a lot of us. It's helped us understand what we truly care about. And when you look at that in the context of everything that we've been doing, I think it's fairly clear that the COVID shutdowns have reminded us that we like people, that we crave getting together and meeting and learning and talking to each other and laughing and kind of engaging with each other. Ultimately, I think what this year has taught a lot of people, especially those of us in the live industry, that people need connection. And I truly do believe that business will come roaring back given the chance to meet those needs. But the live business is going to be different. And I think that there's going to be a journey back to normal, and that journey is going to go through some steps. I fundamentally believe that the live business is at a moment of change, that our future is going to look very different. But I also believe that that moment is a moment of really great potential. I think that we're expanding the idea of live. I think that we are looking at live in a way that is going to include meaningful and exciting changes that frankly will make live a better medium, and shift us as an industry from looking at live as a thing that happens on a set of dates in a certain place to being something that happens all year round. This continuous, dynamic, interactive conversation that happens on many different platforms at different times around an affinity group or an interest or an industry or a vertical. this chart is one that we developed internally to really start thinking about where we think live is going at Freeman. And pre-COVID, we were all the way on the left, right? An event happens in a moment, and there's the set of things that happen around that timeline. We think eventually we're going to get to the vision on the right, and the reality of where we are right now is that we're in the middle, right? But that right circle, or that right set of circles, is where we think we're headed, which is an in-person calendar of events that's really grounded on data about the audience and understanding what the audience needs, and then building a calendar of meaningful, sticky content that helps connect and engage with those people and keeps them in a conversation that happens year round. Whether that's virtual, whether that's regional meetings, whether that's big meetings or whatever, we think that there's going to be a shift in the cadence of the way things happen and more of an emphasis on data and live. I've got to say, I don't think that that's just a good thing. I think that's the best thing. I think it's going to be kind of an exciting time for all of us in the industry. And I think that it's going to make a lot of the work that all of us do fairly effective and sticky and really move the needle. Because I think that the future of the live medium is a future that is more accessible, more sustainable, more effective, more impactful, more extendable, more measurable, and more equitable. Virtual brings that to the mix, right? If travel is hard for you, you can still connect with information now. And as more and more shows move to having that kind of virtual component, I think we're expanding the possible universe of folks that we can engage with. And that, most importantly, makes those engagements more profitable, right? The combination of in-person and digital is going to be a powerful one, and one that frankly brings a lot of rewards to everybody involved. And what I mean by that is that it's like a virtual cycle of value. The show organizer is going to have value in that. The exhibitor is going to have value in that. The sponsor is going to have value in that. And the attendee is going to have value in that. And in a way that becomes win-win-win-win for everybody, which is never going to be bad. Now, the scary part of all of this is that expanding the medium can be really uncomfortable. For a lot of folks in our industry, the digital world is uncharted territory. But here's what I'm here to say, which is that if you step away from the mechanics of the medium, if you step away from the mechanics of digital and concentrate on the things that all of you here, at this session, all of us in the live space already know how to do, the things that we've been doing for years so well in the live space, if you concentrate on those things and concentrate on the fundamentals of connecting with people and engaging them in conversations about the things that they care about and giving them the information that they're looking for and actually adding value to their lives, then the transition to digital is not really a heavy lift. It is going to be something that we're going to have to learn some new rules around, but it's not going to be like, oh my gosh, everything that I think is wrong. The move to virtual ultimately is exciting. I think it's an opportunity to connect with new people, with new stories, and telling those stories in new ways that potentially have a lot of resonance with the audiences that we're talking to. And I think that ultimately it's an opening to expand our influence as marketers and increase our impact and our ROI. Connecting with audiences in more actionable and deeper ways, giving them the things that they need when they need them, and connecting them with the information that they want and value in novel, exciting, and valuable ways. That's a lot of benefit, right? Like for the exhibitor, it increases your impact in all kinds of ways, right? More people is more connections, it's more data, it's longer and more sticky engagements, it's access to a wider world of attendees, of stories, of speakers. And all of that can help you connect people with your business, extend your story, and ultimately move folks down the sales funnel, which can only be good. And on the flip side of that, it's also great for the attendee, because for them, they're able to engage in their own terms. It gives you access to shows, for example, that your schedule may not have allowed you to go to, but now, given digital and the digital aspect of things, you might be able to join and engage in ways that you wouldn't have been able to before. You can get the information you need without a lot of investment or commitment, which is going to mean more people connecting with you and your brand and your story and engaging with you. So in a lot of ways, it's about casting a wider net and expanding the reach and effectiveness of the things that you're doing in marketing. Now, yes, there's always a but, and don't worry, it's not a bad one. Moving to a medium ultimately just means new things, right? It means understanding that while the basics are the same, while the stuff that you know, that stuff is still useful, you're going to need to leverage it in different ways to take full advantage of this new medium, of this new reality. Let me explain. My background is filmmaking. I spent 8 years working for George Lucas and 10 years as a commercial film director before coming into the live space. And I know a lot about making films and how to tell stories in that medium. By the same token, I also read a lot. Sometimes I read a book and I think, man, that would be a great movie. I'm going to tell you a professional secret. It's actually not much of a secret and not just professional, but what you see here is not how you make a film of a book. I mean, you can just stick a camera in front of a book and film every page, but you really shouldn't make a film of a book this way. There are rules on how to tell stories in books. There are rules on how you tell stories on film, and you've got to understand that set of rules. The same story can be told in two different mediums, but you'll have to adjust the story and you'll have to adjust how you tell that story and get it across, because what makes sense for a book doesn't make sense for a film, and vice versa. What we're doing right now is no different. So while it's incredibly tempting, it's important to resist the urge to just try to replicate in-person events virtually. It just doesn't work. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't work in the live space. It means that transferring the live space into digital doesn't necessarily just work any more than the opposite works, right? It's a medium, it's different. And in order to get the same effects, you've just got to adjust some of the ways that you think about and do things. So while I guarantee you that there are better ways to use the rules and approaches of digital and virtual and broadcast to get the things that you want done. So from my perspective, in the end, we're standing on the threshold of a whole new world, right? We've always in live depended on the fact that our audiences are kind of trapped at the show, right? If you're giving a keynote, it takes a lot of effort as an audience member to stand up in the middle of a keynote and just walk out, right? You're kind of captive, and a lot of things hold you in that engagement. In this world, in this new digital world, many of our audiences aren't trapped at all. Today is a good example. Most of you are at home. Some of you may be engaged and interested in what I have to say. Some of you may be, ready to catch up on email or walk the dog or deal with the kid or any of the other 100 things that each of you have to kind of balance what I'm saying against in terms of attention. That's important. It's important from that perspective to make sure that you're creating something that's captivating enough to keep folks engaged. And ultimately, I think that's very doable. It's exciting, but it presents us with, I think, one of the greatest opportunities that we've ever had in this industry. And that is an opportunity to create something like truly amazing and groundbreaking, because the reality is that by leveraging the best of digital, the best of in-person, the best of the web, the best of broadcast, the best of storytelling, you can create something novel and exciting and amazing and frankly, extremely profitable for all of us. And by that, I also mean the audience, right? It's something that really resonates for everybody and creates value. Something that gets people excited and engaged. Because like I said earlier, COVID's reminded us about what we care about, and we need to remember that too. And we need to build something for folks that helps them meet those needs in a way that is valuable to them. Let's talk about some of the things that I think are worth thinking about as you design digital engagements. Over the past week, MHI has put together sessions that have helped you think about ProMat and marketing yourself and telling your story. And in the next few days, they're going to talk to you more about optimizing your event and how to build demos and getting the most out of your attendees. And I really highly recommend that you engage with the information on the ShowPro website. I think it's promatshow.com/ShowPro. But as for me, like, I'm here to talk to you about, things that you have to think about if you're trying to get sticky with an audience and engage with them in a way that keeps them eager to engage with you. Let's talk about what that isn't. It's not as simple as putting a camera in the back of your space and lecturing at people. You can do that, obviously. It's not going to be particularly effective unless people are looking for a lecture, right? What you need to think about is your medium, and what you need to think about is your digital session and what you're going to do and say at that session, and design it in a way that leverages the strengths and weaknesses of both the medium and your story, and uses those strengths and weaknesses to meet the needs and wants of your audience. Because it's not just about creating a booth in the virtual space of replicating, the real world. In the real world, a booth works because the attendee can curate their own experience. I can move around your booth. I can talk to the people I'm interested in talking to. I can look at the things that I'm interested in looking at, and move around or linger or leave based on how I feel or what I need. That gets flipped on its head in digital, because ultimately you are the creator or the curator in the digital space. You decide what people are going to see, when they're going to see it, when they linger, when they move on. And that gives you a lot of responsibility and, frankly, a lot of risk around engaging with your audience. So if you do that right, if you explore what you know about your audience and design to satisfy that audience, well, the sky's the limit, right? I can give you some context. At Freeman, we did a show for one of our clients who was an exhibitor at RSNA, which is a big medical imaging show in Chicago every year. And they were very worried because they had to go to a digital engagement this year, and they were very concerned about the amount of sales that they were going to generate in a digital environment. And frankly, the fear motivated them, and they did a lot of homework and really explored their audience and what their audience wanted to see and all of that. And the end result of that was something that actually blew them away. Their funnel was increased by around $700 million in dollars that are all directly attributable to engagements that were a function of the event. They were smart. They thought about their audience. They met that need, and frankly, like, they are now in a position of starting to reap those rewards. The reality of that kind of engagement, the reality of sales like that, the reality of engagements in the digital space like that, is that you've got to focus on content. Whether you're talking about in person or digital, the reality is that all of these shows, whether live or digital, are about connecting people with the information that they need in a compelling way that makes them feel that the engagement itself is valuable. Content is what brings people to you, and content is what keeps people talking to you long past the event and way down the funnel all the way to the sale, right? Like, building a story that is compelling for folks is kind of the critical part of all of this. You've got to hook your audience, and that is critical in the digital space, because the reality is that if your content is not good at a live event in person, what you end up seeing is people zoning out and paying attention to their phones or laptops or anything else that's more interesting. But in the virtual world, where people aren't captive, they're more likely to just move on. They're more likely to just log off the session and go do something else. And once you lose those folks, they're gone. You're not going to get them back. The thing that brings people to events and keeps them there is content, which is typically in the form of learning about a product or a service or how to do something or something like that. And while that content is often a driver in person, in the virtual space, it's not just a driver, it's all about it. It's all about the content you deliver. It's all about how you deliver that content. It's all about how you follow down that path to engage with folks. And if you do it right, you do the right kinds of content and the right amounts of content in the right way at the right time, your audience is going to want to continue to talk to you, to explore all of the things that you have to say, and they're going to want to know about how you can help them succeed. They are going to be eager to engage with you, and they're going to want to talk to you for longer. If they're interested in what you've already said, they're going to look for more information, for more content from you, and they're more likely to dig in and begin to explore kind of your whole range of offerings. Now, I brought this up a couple of times, but there are two critical words to think about here. One of them is relevant, and the other one is compelling. If you're organizing an automotive event, but featuring beauty products, you cannot expect people to have a lot of interest in it. If your experience is nothing more than a logo and some boilerplate content, you're offering the kind of stuff that people can just like go online and do a Google search and get that information. If you tell a story that's relevant, if you tell a story that matters to your perfect audience, and you tell a story that's compelling, you tell a story that moves your audience to act in the ways that you want them to act, then you're going to be able to do the things you need to do. And virtual content is no different than meeting in person, right? You only get one opportunity to make a good first impression. And if you deliver a subpar experience with that first impression, attendees are far less likely to want to engage with you. If you deliver a great experience, you can convert folks, you can move them down the funnel and take someone who was just casually checking your session out and turn that person into a future customer, turn them into an advocate, an evangelist, and frankly, help drive ROI in a meaningful way. Because happy attendees are more likely to spread your story. They're more likely to share that with peers. And that sharing that, we know from data that is some of the most effective marketing. That word of mouth sharing from people you know and trust is far more effective than just about anything else that's out there. And that will expand your reach, that will jack up your ROI. And ultimately, that's the point, right? Like, that's what we are here to do. It's about converting people and driving commerce for whatever businesses we're in. And in order to do that, this is really the critical part. It's not, you shouldn't be just focusing on what you want to do. You've got to focus on what they want you to do. It's not about the story you want to tell. It's about the story that they need to hear so that they'll do what you want them to do. And getting to that is really about exploring that audience and getting to understand who they are and what it is that they need. As you're designing your experience, you can think about who they are, think about what they need, and also think about how you extend that story past the show. That's another critical part of this, because you're going to want, unless you're selling the kind of product that you sell in one meeting, you're going to want to extend the conversation and move people down the funnel as they qualify more and learn more about your business and the things you offer. Design from the beginning the engagements you want past the event for folks who want to hear more. Who qualify themselves to hear more. And as you go down that path, you can get more and more granular, engage in a more and more meaningful way, because ultimately the digital session is just the beginning, right? It's just the start of the funnel. And you've got to design ways to continue that conversation and make it easy for your audience, right? Remove the burden or the pressure of trying to stay engaged from them and put that on you, and make it a frictionless process for your prospect to go down a journey towards a sale, right? You've got to make it easy for them to go down that journey. You've got to make it easy for them to share your story. Create content that can live past your session and be shared by them with their managers, with their peers, with their friends. And that content can be anything. It could be a really cool infographic. It could be a really detailed email. The point is to understand the audience and what they need and what moves them. Because if you build the right content that's meaningful to that audience, they're going to want to share your story. They're going to do your work for you. And that really is the point here. At a very high level, this is just a primer on how to think about getting sticky with your audience. And in order to do that, you're going to have to explore who that audience is and what it is that you want them to do. It's hard for me to do that in the abstract. And so what I've been trying to do is kind of lay out a set of rules or things to think about that will help you kind of drive that process. Before going to questions, I'm going to share some slides. They're fairly granular. There's a lot of detail on them. I've asked MHI to share the presentation with you guys. I know that this is being recorded, but you should be able to get access to these slides. And if you need to get access to them in any way, please feel free to reach out to me personally. It's Mo Husseini, MOHUSSEINI. at freeman.com, but I do believe Ralph and the MHI folks are going to give you these lists. But first up, it's a checklist of things to consider as you design your content, from understanding your audience to designing your story to thinking about your flows. Like, you know, it's just like a movie. It's just like a roller coaster. There's got to be ups and downs to your story. If you're at one note all the way through, people tune out. Thinking about the flow of information, thinking about the energy. There's nothing earth-shattering here, but it's a good way as you're kind of designing what you want to do to make sure that you're not missing anything, that you're not missing an opportunity to do something like incentivize engagement with you or your brand, or helping people connect past the event. After that, I've got a list of some of the types of engagements or ways of sharing content that you might be able to consider, whether that's product demos, and I know that MHI is helping you to figure out how to do those, whether that's polling or live Q&A or show and tells or deep dive sessions for more qualified leads. There's a fair number of ideas there that you can explore. And then finally, here's some just like very high level ground rules on how to think about engagements in the virtual space. Once again, this isn't brain surgery. And I'm deeply determined to remind you all that you all already know how to do this really well in the live space. Most of the rules of that world transfer into this one. There's just some key things to consider as you engage. Keeping it short and sweet, keeping it easy to extend the conversation. I'm just here to give you tips on what works and doesn't in the virtual space. And ultimately, this is the kind of critically important stuff that I think, helps people continue to engage with you. In the end, here's the point. Be agile, be responsive. There's a great Bruce Lee quote that I use all the time where he's talking about kind of being flexible and agile. And it ends with him saying, water can drip and it can crash. Become like water, my friend. And I think in a lot of ways, there's a deep lesson there. That's how you need to be. You need to study your audience. You need to understand what they want. You need to explore the questions that they are looking for you to answer, and then answer those questions in a relevant, compelling way that they can internalize, that they can engage with, that they can share, that they can talk about. And that makes you sticky. That makes you effective. And that is going to drive ROI and move people down the funnel in ways that are valuable to you. Because ultimately, sticky, relevant, compelling engagements are what drive commerce. That is how we do our business. And ultimately, that's what we all want. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand back to Ralph to do Q&As. Ralph?
Wow. Thank you, Mo. That was fantastic. And I really loved how you talked about the ROI, because that's something we hear about all the time, especially now that we're going to this digital world. So kudos to you for addressing that. And then I liked how you piggybacked on the storytelling session that we had earlier this week, because like you said, telling a great story and being compelling and relevant is really important. So for those of you who weren't able to see that, please go back and look at that, because what Mo's talking about is taking that storytelling and now applying it to what we're going to be doing at PromatDX. And we have the videos, the product demos, the sessions, all to exploit our new knowledge, our newfound application in order to do that. So thank you so much for that, Mo. And now what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over to Greg for questions. And I know we do have a question or two. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see Q&A. Put your questions down there. We'll address those. And with that, I'll turn it over to Greg.
Hey, thank you, Ralph. And thanks again, Mo. That was really, really great stuff. I loved it. We have a question here that kind of hits home to me, with me. Longtime friend of mine that's been in the industry for quite a while, and it's more of a sales related question. You know, I long for the days of tired feet in a cold bourbon after a day on the show floor, chatting with exhibitors. I miss visiting our members at their facilities and having conversations and learning more about their business and just building that relationship. And our customers are going to open their doors at their own pace, right? I just can't say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to go make 50 sales calls. It's just not going to happen that way. But as these doors begin to open back up over the next several months, the question here is I've always told my sales staff that when we go back, face-to-face selling is where it's at. People buy from people. The question is, am I wrong to tell my sales staff that's how it's going to be? Do I need to rethink my approach and factor in this almost parallel universe of virtual with the in-person sales call? How do you see that? You know, if you put your futurist hat on, how do you see those two worlds kind of running together as we climb out of this hole we're in?
Look, I will tell you this. Sales is very, very hard. I can't do it, right? I suck at sales. I normally partner with a salesperson when I'm working because I'm not very good at sales. And the reason I'm not very good at sales is I haven't internalized a lot of that stuff that a really good salesperson does. And I've had the privilege and honor of working with some amazing salespeople. And when you watch them engage with customers, you're watching artists, right? Like, I mean, like, it really, truly, you're watching someone who's a part therapist, part professor, part best friend, and really helping answer the questions and be a true trusted advisor. The best people that I've seen are a partner to the client, to the customer, right? Like, that is ultimately what they're doing. They're trying to solve a problem for the customer. Do I think that that's ever going to be replaced? Heck no. That is absolutely never going to be replaced. You're never going to be able to come up with some algorithm that is going to change, the math in such a way that a good salesperson is no longer going to be necessary. What I am saying is that if you think about the digital space as a good way to qualify leads and move them further down your funnel, it's an incredible tool to help you understand what your customer is thinking about, right? If you think about digital as almost like an intake form, right? Like when you go to the doctor and they give you the form, you're like, what hurts? Like, do the circle, and I've got I hurt my shoulder playing basketball or whatever the heck it is. Think of the digital engagement as a really powerful way to engage with the customer and understand what the things are that they care about. So let's say Greg comes to my digital session and I see the questions that he's interested in or whatever it may be. as a great salesperson, I've now got a set of information about how to talk to Greg and how to move Greg down further. So if you're asking me, does this, do you need to tell your sales team that it's not going to be about face-to-face selling? It is absolutely going to be about face-to-face selling. No one is making, multi-million-dollar deals on the web, right? Like they're discovering information about that kind of stuff, but the real deals happen later, right? The real deals happen face-to-face. The real deals are going to happen with real customers and with real salespeople. I don't think that this is a replacement. I don't think this is either or. I think this is and, right? And any more than a website for a car company replaces the experience of going to the dealer and sitting in the car and getting to drive it and having a conversation about kind of what you're looking for. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it certainly does. Something else I wanted to kind of pick your brain on here. As a first-time virtual exhibitor, in my product demo video, our industry, the folks that come to our shows are coming to kick the tires. They're coming to lift up the hood and see, how a particular conveyor works or an AMR works or whatever that product might be. In this virtual setting, I've been trying to counsel my customers I'm speaking to in this video, instead of opening up the hood and showing them the spark plugs and the fan belt. This environment is the opportunity to tell a story that's going to attract them and bring them in to that next step, which is where you will show them that what's under the hood, right? If I'm a smaller company with limited experience on producing videos in this environment, have you seen things as simple as a couple of folks with an iPhone kind of telling their story about their piece of equipment, or would you suggest them to maybe just rely on, hey, a traditional marketing video that they might have created? I'm on the belief that having some type of what appears to be a live interaction like you would have in your booth to tell that story would be the way to go in this environment. But I was just wanting to see what you thought about that.
So this is actually really interesting. So I mentioned earlier, I come from the world of film, right? And what happens in film is you have a lot of people who tell you that it's all about the quality of the content, right? And what they mean by the quality of the content is expensive cameras and lighting and expensive actors and scripts and all that other stuff. And there's a lot of people who, planted their flag on the top of that hill and told you that no one would ever expect crap content. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce TikTok and YouTube and Snapchat and all that other stuff. And because what those things have proven is that it's not about the visual quality of the content. It's about how engaging the story is. So if you're asking me, do I need to rely on, like a pre-made piece of video that my marketing team put together and is putting out there? Sure, it depends on your audience, right? But like, if you're telling me that your audience is people who want to kick tires, who want to look under the hood and who want to engage with stuff, I suspect that you're probably going to get a lot more traction with something that feels a lot more live, with something that feels like, if you've got a Q&A off to the side and you're saying like, hey, here's my hashtag, ask me questions on Twitter. Like, you don't have to leverage a lot of like very heavy technology. You can leverage things that exist out there, because really what TikTok and Snapchat and all these things have taught us is that actually what people are looking for is not high production value. What they're looking for is things that are entertaining, right? Or engaging. In the context of business, I've seen very effective marketing that has been as simple as, to use your example of someone just holding up an iPhone and going, well, hold on, you just asked a question about the blah blah part of my machine. Let's go over there and I'm going to lift it up and show you what's happening over here, right? That is way more interesting to me as a consumer that's interested in what's under that little hood than seeing your logo and a really cool animation that's flying around, right? And this is where I get to the idea that it's important to understand the audience, right? Like, different people need different messages, and that's not that's very simple at a top level, but it's also a much deeper question, which is, if I'm talking to a set of executives are going to talk about cost of operation and maintenance costs and what the ROI is on the investment in this machine or that machine, and how it, like, all these very high level business decisions. If I'm talking to a set of people who have to maintain the machines, we're going to have a very different conversation about how reliable they are and the kind of maintenance that needs to happen and what those schedules look like and what the cost of that looks like. And if I'm talking to someone in marketing, that's another completely different story. And that's what I mean when I say that it's really important to understand your audience and understand what it takes to move that person, right? Like, I've got a 12-year-old son. When I need my 12-year-old son to do something, I've got to motivate him with the right pieces of content, to use that language, right? Like, or demotivate him. That is a completely different conversation when I'm talking to my boss, when I'm talking to my wife, when I'm talking to my brother. Everybody has different needs and different levers that make them move. And ultimately, in a business, I'm trying to affect a change, right? Like, and that's always the case, right? Like, I'm trying to make you move from someone who's not even considering my product to someone who is buying my product. I'm trying to make you move from someone who thinks my brand is so-so to someone who's like, oh my God, they're the best people ever. So how do I move people down that journey? I've got to think about what motivates them and what makes them think that way. Yeah, the production value is not the important part. The important part is the story you tell, right? Like, the story that makes Greg go, damn, these guys aren't idiots, right? Like, I've got a problem and they're solving that problem. So don't stress the production value, stress the story. Like, really, some of the most effective stories that I've ever been a part of have been, around campfires, where people have managed to scare the bejesus out of me, with just words and firelight. So
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm glad that was your answer. That's kind of what I've been preaching to folks. And I want to reiterate that applies also to your static assets that you're going to upload to the OEP, your PDFs and any kind of literature that you're going to have. It's great to have a price list or a sales sheet showing your products. I mean, that's good, right? But this is not a trade show. This is a totally different environment. So my theory in this whole thing, as this is my first time venturing into this digital world, is I want to use those PDF assets that I upload to draw interest into my showcase, draw the attendee into asking me questions about my products by utilizing a thought piece or a story or an article in those assets, right? I'm thinking it's better to leverage those to tell your story than to just have a basic
look, I mean,
product listing.
You're 100% right, Greg, because here's the thing. A price list is a price list, man. I can Google a price list, right? Like, and this is what I mean. It's like, what are you trying to do with the price list? Are you trying to say I'm cheaper? Are you trying to say I'm more expensive? Are you trying to say I'm more reliable? Like, what is the message of the price list? If it's just putting the prices out there and that's all you're trying to do, you're missing out on an opportunity to move your audience, right? And to your point, it's like, what if instead of a price list, you just laid out a set of, like a set of reasons for why your product is better, or, like, it's really about what the story is. Once again, like, a lot of shows in the live space, you'll go to the show, like I certainly happened to me, right? There'll be some show that I want to go to that I really want to go to, and I'll go to their website and you'll see that price. And here's the deal. I, like the rest of you, I've got to get approval from my boss. And the smart shows, the ones that I love, have got a little thing where you press the button, it'll write a letter for you that you can send to your boss and go, this is why I want to go to, MHI's ShowPro this year, right? Like, here's how I'm going to justify the investment. It's not about the price, it's about the justification. And that's what I'm trying to get to is, yeah, sure. Like if the price list matters to the customer you're trying to engage with, then put that out there. If your customer is a high level exec, they're going to want to talk about ROI, like show them data on how effective your product is rather than a price list, right? Like show them data on what it does for you as a business. And that is you're going to get far more traction out of that kind of stuff. It looks like we have another question here, I think.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered it. It was about production value. So,
what would you recommend to companies who do not yet have an official product video to draw interest about our products in video format? Honestly, just talk about your product, man. And I don't, we've seen it over and over again when you do studies. The number one most trusted recommendation is from someone who's used the product, right? Like that's why sites like Yelp are so successful. That's why all of us, when we're going online, you look at the reviews, and I'm going to look at the reviews on Amazon. I'm going to look at all this stuff. We want to hear from folks. If you don't have a product video, why don't you do a video where you're talking to some of your customers? Like I said, it doesn't have to be like glossy and glitzy. And I'll tell you an interesting story, which is I did some work in the direct marketing space, and the more polished the video is, the less likely people are to trust it, believe it or not. And so sometimes being raw is a very good it's a very good driver of trust. I know we're getting on time. I can tell when Ralph is on, it means I'm in trouble.
you get
Ralph?
the hook. Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys so much. And hey, look, I could sit and listen to you for another hour, no problem here, but we do have a time schedule to adhere to. So thank you very much, Mo. And, once again, you can re-watch this video by going to promatshow.com/showpro. We will repost it. We will give you access to the presentation. And then, of course, if you want to reach out to Mo, you can certainly do that as well. So thank you very much, Mo. We certainly do appreciate that.
I just quickly, thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for having me. The MHI folks, you guys rock. Ralph, you're amazing. And please, if there are questions that I can help with, just do reach out. It's my name, mo.husseini at freeman.com. But thank you all for your time, and thank you for your attention.
Our pleasure. Now listen, that I told you that was a lot of information, but it gave you a why. And now what we're going to do this afternoon at 1 o'clock is we're going to talk about optimizing that PromatDX exhibit showcase. So think about your exhibit space and think about how I can best optimize that using all of that information you just got from Mo on how to best do that for our audience, for your prospects and your clients. So you're not going to want to miss that. That's going to be with Jefferson Davis, who most of you do know, and that'll be a very exciting, a very informative session today at 1 o'clock. And if you have anybody else that you think might benefit from that, please, by all means, invite them to come and join us as well. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Greg. Greg, do you have some parting comments for our audience?
Just thank you, Mo. Thank you to everyone that was part of today's ShowProDX session. I hope you all found something useful out of this content. I know I personally did. Together, MHI and our sponsors, I truly believe that we can deliver the industry with an exciting and dynamic experience through PromatDX. So I look forward to continuing this conversation this afternoon and seeing you all at our next session. Thank you.